your host of Living on the Edge, and the other host right here, Frankie King. Hi, Frankie.
Hello.
How are you doing today, Frankie?
Well, Donna, I'm glad the holidays are over.
Are you? Well, I'm always glad. I'm always waiting and anxious for the holidays. Then when they get here, I'm ready for them to hurry up and be done with.
You know, the worst part is all the weight that we gain.
Yeah, she looks like she's gained some weight.
Well,
She has not.
Things are not fitting the way they used to fit. So I know that too much candy. My stepmother, she makes the most awesome candy, and I can't stay away from it because I love sweets.
Oh, I do too. But it kind of gives you energy. It's good for you when you think about chocolate.
Oh,
They say
just keep
chocolate
telling
is
me
actually
that.
good for you.
So we're going to have to get to some maintenance the first part of the year.
Yeah, well, that comes with it. That's why, exercise equipment and diet, those things don't sell really well this time of the year.
Right. And
gym memberships.
TV is just replete with ads,
Mm-hmm.
weight loss.
And I'm like a magnet to those
liposuction.
ads. Yeah. Absolutely. But anything you can do in excess is not a good thing anyway. You have to have this happy balance in your life.
Right. And I like to balance a few vegetables with a lot of sweets.
Yeah. Yeah. Cookie candy. That's a nice balance right there with it itself. Now we're going to talk about the holidays, and I'm sure you had a good time. I did. But sometimes there are a few things that can happen, family-wise. And so how do you overcome those things? Let's talk about, because everybody has to deal with that.
I don't know that you overcome, but you just learn to cope.
Well, how can you do that? Okay, let's say an event is coming up. All the family's going to be there, and you want to please everybody. And I know you're that way. I am as well. Where you just want to please the whole crowd. You can't do that.
Right. Well, we talked before about this a few days ago, but we have unrealistic expectations of the holidays, and I've noticed that you see the Christmas lights going up earlier and earlier, and I think people are searching for that lost Christmas. And I feel that way too. There used to be a time that it was magical, and maybe all of your relatives were still alive, and your memories go back to that, and you try to recapture that, and it's not possible. You can't go back in time. Life is about changing.
It is. And then, like you said, it's not real. We watch television, the perfect family. So what is the perfect family? Leave It to Beaver episodes and those things. And life is not perfect, but sometimes we see it, on television or the movies as being a perfect life. So do we compare our lives just a bit too much to television, radio?
I think we seek that. There's something in us that wants that perfect holiday, and then when it doesn't happen, no matter how early you start putting up decorations, nothing ever goes exactly like you have visualized it in your mind. And so we're left feeling empty, and then we're glad when it's over. But really and truly, if you want to get let's just boil it all down to Christmas is supposed to be about Jesus' birth, and he was actually probably born in September. So what are we going to do with that fact?
Maybe that's why we start putting up our Christmas tree and everything in September. But, you're right about that. I remember the days when I was a kid, and, the Christmas tree didn't go up in November. You had Thanksgiving first. And then a week or two after that's when the tree went up, and I think it seemed a little more like Christmas then.
Right.
Because we didn't get so conditioned, and that's the way life works. Sometimes we get conditioned to things, and so it doesn't seem new to us anymore.
Right.
So how do we deal with it?
We have to realize that this is not reality, what we've seen, and the things we've experienced before we'll never experience again. But we can start to do things that are meaningful and start trying to help people. Maybe that's why we're not feeling so fulfilled.
Mm-hmm. And I guess maybe, and I know I do this, sometimes you just get so wrapped up into Christmas and buying the gifts and wrapping the gifts that we forget what it's about. It's all about Christ's birth.
Well, probably they don't want to hear so much about Christmas because they're probably as tired of it as we are.
But it'll help for next year.
But I don't know how you grew up, but I've told this a lot of times, but I grew up in a really poor family, and the simple Christmas, I mean, sometimes it was just a cake, just a special cake or something, and we didn't have little or no gifts. But I look back on those now, and it really warms my heart to think of those. So we know that money and things, it's not making people happy, is it?
No, it's not. And I know you hear that, and you and I have had this discussion several times about people who win the lottery. Mm-hmm. You would think, oh, these people, they're really poor, have absolutely nothing, or maybe a guy is playing football, and all of a sudden he's just making millions of dollars a year, and there's just something that seems to be missing. And you'll see them being interviewed, and there seems to be something missing from their eyes.
Right.
And, I don't know, does it take a bit of your soul away? I mean, what does it do?
I think it leaves emptiness. I think that when it's all said and done, it really can't make you happy. Mm-hmm. Happiness is an inside thing, and of course, I don't think a person can truly be happy and content until they find the Lord. Mm-hmm. And that makes all the difference in the world to me.
But then again, I mean, you have to think, Frankie, think about this. The richest man ever was King Solomon.
Right.
And he seemed to be pretty content, but maybe he had his priorities right.
Well, he did not end well. Mm-hmm. He may have started well, but he did not end well, and it ended up with he had to give up his own life, pulling the pillars down, and he allowed a woman to change the direction of his life. And
we see a lot of that in the Bible sometimes. I hate to say because I'm a woman, but really that happens a lot.
Right.
I guess it's when you lose your perspective with God.
Mm-hmm. We have to keep him at the center of everything, really, to maintain that peace and contentment in life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now, you had some scriptures. You wanted to go over a couple of things.
Well, we were just talking earlier about the different people in our lives and the family dysfunction that happens, and is more evident during the holidays.
In every family.
Because everybody has those high expectations.
True.
And how far do we go with these family members that create chaos and make our lives miserable and discontented?
Well, and I'll put it to you this way, if someone else says, so-and-so drives me crazy, I'm one of those, I'll say, well, just let it roll off your back. But when it happens to me, I don't have that kind of an attitude.
Right.
So what kind of advice could you give someone? Because you love people and you want the perfect life and you want the family to get along with each other. So how can you possibly handle it, without starting World War III? But how can you possibly handle that?
Well, you have to recognize your own limitations. And, the Bible says to live peaceably among all men as much as is possible, and I'm paraphrasing. But that's the gist of it. But, sometimes, even with family, you cannot live peaceably. If it's a mother or a father, then you have to fulfill your duty as a child and take care of that parent as much as possible. But that doesn't mean you have to be with them 24/7. Mm-hmm. That's the main one that I would be wanting to take care of the most. But when it gets into the siblings, I don't know, there seems to be this built-in rivalry. Do you see that?
Yeah, I do. And it started with Cain and Abel, right? There was the rivalry right there. But a lot of jealousy can come in, and I'm telling you what, that green monster, when that comes out, that can destroy families.
Absolutely.
So how would you handle that?
Well, I would just say again, you have to recognize your limitations. If it's really making you miserable and you're not helping the situation, then it may be a time to talk to somebody, maybe talk to your pastor or talk to a therapist and see what direction you need to go.
And there's some good Christian therapists out there as well. You know, you think about, you know, because I've always done this, you know, like something happens, I just think, well, I'll think about that later. And then if you're not careful, it can build up with you, you know, and then you may explode. You know, I mean, you can do that. And so how would you handle the person who just, I don't want to handle it right now, let's just we'll handle it later. Should you confront it right then, or should you just try to ignore situations?
There's an old saying, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
I don't think I'm going to like this answer.
So, I can't tell you what to do, but at that time I would probably step back and say, Lord, what are you trying to show me here? What do I need to do? I don't have direction. If you can just step away from the situation, sometimes timing is everything.
And it's best, I know both my granddads would always say, if there's a situation that arises, the best thing to do is step back, think about it for about an hour, then respond. What do you say about that?
Oh, I think that's a great thing. And you have to realize that with some people, no matter what you say, they're not going to change.
Yeah, I've run into that. You know, sometimes people can just not like the way you say, would you like sweet tea? I mean, you know, you can really bug some people, you know.
Right.
So what brings that about?
It can be several things. So this is just totally my opinion. This is just from experience in life, and sometimes a person can close their heart to somebody.
Yeah.
You know, and there's no way to get through to them. That's one thing.
So sometimes it's just not going to happen no matter what. Yeah, that's sad. That really is sad when it happens.
It's amazing to me that you know, you get saved and you think, I'm different. I'm new. I'm a complete different creature, and you know that in your heart. But sometimes you have a hard time convincing other people of that, no matter how much at the foot of the cross, so to speak, that you try to live and try to go the direction the Lord wants you. I mean, there's some people that will never accept that. They'll always hold you to your past, and
even if it's something you did when you were 2 years old.
Right. Yeah, we're talking some family dysfunction here.
We really are. You know, I remember what you did to me when I was 2. You know, I mean, those are, you know, some bad things. But I don't know, you know, you listen to your grandparents talk about, you know, their day. And my granddad and grandmother both had lots of brothers and sisters. And they always seemed to kind of pull for each other. Like a tornado came through one time and it ripped off, I forget which one, somebody's roof. Well, all the brothers and sisters got together, and all the brothers helped repair the roof, and the sisters all got together and had a picnic lunch, you know, and it was done in no time. And so they would just go around from family member to family member, just helping each other. And they seemed to want to root each other. They wanted them to do well, you know. So if somebody did, you know, got a job, you know, like my granddad was working with the USDA, no college education whatsoever, and retired from the USDA. And so the rest of the family members thought that was awesome. I mean, you know, they would just brag on him, you know, and say, wow, he only had a 9th grade education. And of course, you can do that now, kids, go to college. But, you know, that's just the way it was then.
Right,
so
because
why don't people
families are not going to rush probably to help you like
that. No. But why don't people want to build each other up anymore? I mean, you just don't hear that. And it wasn't exaggerated, you know, my grandparents thought, because I actually saw it happening. They would root each other.
Well, if you'll think about it, though, the whole world and America has become materialistic. And to have things, you have to work a lot of hours, and that has to be your focus. I mean, we have to face the fact that jobs, they're really demanding, and you have very little time to give. And also, to tell you the truth, we allow TV and computers, to take care of all of our spare time.
Yeah, that's true.
Is that not true? I mean, this is a hard thing for all of us to
Well,
admit,
if you're not careful, I mean, even if you're looking for, let's say you're on the internet and you're really doing a Bible study, if you're not careful, you're going to be on the internet all day long. You've really got to limit that time. So what should we do? Just maybe set up a day, or set up some kind of an events page in our day timers, to where, we're only going to be on the internet, say, from 1 to 2.
I think a lot of people need to do that. Not everybody, but a lot of people do.
Yeah, and have your mind trained to do that as well.
It affects all of us. It affects me, because when I get home a lot of times, or when I'm through working for the day, I want to sit down and just veg. And what better place than in front of the TV? Now, we are very meticulous about choosing the right programs to watch, and we don't even have paid TV anymore, as far as Dish or anything like that.
Well, there's no point. We just watch Sandy Griffith reruns all the time. Why pay for it?
But I think that we have to start being very discreet in our watching programs and the time that we spend on the TV and computers.
Yeah. You see kids, they're doing their homework, and they'll have, something in their ears. They're listening to something on their iPod. Then they're looking at the iPad, and then they're looking at television at the same time.
Right.
So is there any wonder why the attention span is just like this these days?
I battled that myself. And this is something that has just happened to me in my recent years. I have a hard time reading, because I will read the same paragraph over and over, or the same sentence over and over. And I really think that our attention is just so drawn in all directions that we can't concentrate.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the mommies that are out there right now, and they're struggling with time. They've got the kids, and they're trying to get them set to school and do their homework. But then again, how important is it for mommy to have a little bit of mommy time?
I have to have time to myself. I have to have a little bit of solitude, and I don't run around after a toddler or a teenager. So that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
So I don't really know how that they do it, because I don't know how they carry out.
Well, I'll tell you, it was hard. And I've got, of course, my baby now is, in his 30s, in his late 30s. And they required a lot of attention. He was by himself. And so the best thing I ever did for him was get him a pet. So he had a pet, so he could, something for him to have responsibility for. But if I did something for myself, I felt guilty. I thought, and I think that's just a woman thing. You feel guilty if you're doing something for yourself.
We are the caretakers.
Yeah. I had a remarkable sister-in-law, and she would call and say, "I think it's mommy time." She'd say, "Bring Brad over." So I would bring Brad over there. And she was absolutely remarkable, because she understood. She had 2 little ones. Of course, they were teens then. At that time. And she said, "Mommies need some mommy time."
Right.
And she said, "You need to quit feeling guilty about it."
Well, if you can find somebody like that to take the responsibility for a while, you really need to.
But then we get back to dysfunctional families, because, I was just blessed with a great sister-in-law. And that, what if you don't have anybody like that in your family? What do you do? My suggestion was daycare centers. But find a good one.
if you're a churchgoer, then maybe there's a friend who has children. You could trade out having a little time, to the children. So.
But the Bible really speaks of having quiet time with God. And
the early church, they were like sisters, and it was all about becoming a godly woman, a housekeeper of the house, and we've left that.
We have.
And I was in the business world for about 35 years, I guess. So, but thankfully God has taken all of that desire away.
about this, the last chapter of Proverbs, and you're talking about the virtuous woman.
Mm-hmm.
There is a part in there where she goes out and buys, she buys some land.
Right.
She buys some property while the husband sits in the gates.
Mm-hmm.
How many times have our husbands sat in the gates while we were out there buying property or buying groceries?
Well, for a lot of years, I bought property by myself,
Mm-hmm.
and the Lord had blessed me, and I'm very thankful. But when that period of my life was over, it's like, okay, I don't have any desire for that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But the music and keeping the home, that's bringing me joy.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your music now. I just want to tell you, Frankie writes music, and she also has a group. And let's talk about that for a moment.
Okay. What do you want to know?
I want to know how you do it. I mean, it's amazing to me. As a matter of fact, the name of the show is Living on the Edge, and this is a song that Frankie has written.
Well, actually, it's not completed yet, and hopefully I'll be going to
I'll be pushing it.
I'll be going to Nashville January the 9th and be getting some help on it. I'll tell more about it later.
Okay. I almost let the cat out of the bag on this one.
No, I don't want to mention any names, till
Oh,
we...
I understand. Totally understand. But you have a group, Point of Honor.
We are 25 years old.
Wow.
Actually, a little more than that, I think. But I started the group by myself 25 years ago, and Ronnie came with the group in 1998, so he's been there a while. And then
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Hyatt, my cousin, he came about 5 years ago. So,
Mm-hmm.
As long as we're all living and breathing, we'll probably be like this. And we got a lot of good things going this coming year, hopefully.
Well, this is something you really enjoy, and you're really, really good at it. I'm not saying that just because she's sitting by me, but I listen to your CDs frequently, and they're a huge help to me.
Thank you. That's the highest honor, because that's what we want.
So what makes you tick? When you write a song, in other words, is this something you've been thinking about for a long time, or do you just wake up one morning and there's the song?
All of that.
I thought you might say that.
Well, I have to say that I spend a lot of time with the Lord. And even when I was working, I was in my car a lot because I've listed houses, and that's where I would get a lot of ideas. Things would just come to me. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Sometimes when I'm on the lawnmower, we've talked about that before.
Phil has mentioned this. Get on the lawnmower,
I'm
write
an
another
outside
song.
person, so, or maybe I'm just sitting at the piano and.
So you play the piano. You play by ear, by note, both.
I took lessons for years, and I had a wonderful teacher. He used to play for the Sons of the Pioneers. He's gone now, but his name was Charles Cruz. And he taught me how to play the way the Nashville musicians play by number, somewhat. He could play jazz. He could play anything. And so I do know music. Do I use it? No. I just play whatever. I don't even know when I sit down at the piano, I don't know what's going to reach the fingers. I have no idea. It's just.
That's an amazing talent.
Kind of like the songwriting. But I try to, when I'm playing, especially with the group, I try to play something that builds a platform for the voices, and not just play the melody. There's an art to it, and I've been doing this a long time. I started playing piano when I was 7, so I should be a lot better than I am.
Well, she's remarkable. You have to hear. Do you have a website folks can find
We
some of your
mainly
music?
just use Facebook.
Okay.
that's how people usually contact us. And we're on YouTube, we're on Reverb Nation, so that's how people find us.
So, well, you seem to be making this into a balance. I tell you, sometimes I have an idea. I'm not sure if it's God giving it to me or something else is giving me some ideas sometimes. But how do you know it's a God thing?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I'm still working on that.
I'll always work on that one, I promise you.
And sometimes I think God has allowed it to be that way so that we'll use our faith and trust Him.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about, is trusting. And also trusting His timing, because, I'm really bad at this. When I want something to happen, I want it to happen yesterday, and, I really struggle within God's time. But the times that I have let it be God's time, it was a remarkable situation.
Right.
It was always worked out,
And
better
that's so
than I ever
hard.
thought it could ever be.
Because we're conditioned to have it now, and so we don't like
Instant everything, instant coffee, instant everything.
But I've talked to you before about how I've had to wait for things to happen with the group, and then accept that maybe it's not God's will for those things that the world thinks is success. Maybe that's not what He wants for us.
Well, I think God wants us to go through experiences, and that way we can help other folks, because I'm sure you've been a huge help to upcoming groups. People are just thinking about writing music or writing songs, words to songs, and maybe even starting groups.
Well, I have had people like that in my life, and since I've been going to conferences and met a lot of people who become mentors, that I have those kind of people in my life, and I would certainly encourage anybody that comes in my path to. I will try to be an encourager.
Well, and you definitely are. Frankie's a good friend of mine. I'm glad we met each other a few years ago.
I am too.
So you've been a huge help to me in the world. We're going to have to wrap this up. Can you believe it? We've already had 30 minutes on this show, and I think it's just been an awesome one. Would like to know what you think about the show, anything that you would like for us to add. Do us a thumbs up also, if you don't mind. So look us up on youtube.com, and so...
Living on the Edge with Donna and Frankie.
And that's what we do. Frankie and I live on the edge.
Don't we all?
So thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. By the way, you'll find that I love dogs. So if you hear a dog timer, that's my timer. Thank you so much for watching us and for listening. Again, we would love to have you. Any advice you would give us as we all grow together on here.
Or a topic.
Absolutely. Any topics that you would like. And again, thank you so much for listening.
God bless.
God bless.